I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your feeder flash for Friday, February the 9th. And we've got a week here where we've just had so much steady and everything. Your feeder markets have been pretty much steady throughout, and it's settled down a whole lot, just not much volatility at all. Your board hasn't even been limit one way or the other all week long, and we're coming in here to Friday. It hasn't changed a whole lot either from where we're at. We haven't had any fat cattle trade. All your other variables have been just about neutral, and it's one of those weeks where you just wish that we had an auction where, you know, we could get the packers on one side and offer up the cattle that are on the show list there. And I know we've tried that with the online cattle auctions, and that's never going to work because it's too much competition, and we hate to see the packers have to deal in competition. They got to use leverage and all the other tools they have at their disposal to get the market the way they want it. But you just wish we could just get up in front of the auction, say how many dollars on them, and find out what this market's going to be. You know, our market was 126 last week. It was 127 the week before that. Just looking at the surface of this thing, I think steady would be a failure for the cattle feeders, and I think they should look at 128. You know, we were thinking that we might be able to get to 130 before we got to the heavier numbers of market ready cattle, and the thing started going back the other way. But when you've got a little bit of hand in the relationship, if you will, your cattle feeders just have to build things as big as they can do it to make it that much tougher to tear down. So we need to try to get as much market position as we can, because we know we got heavier numbers of market ready cattle coming, and the market's going to get cheaper down the road. But you know, this is a good opportunity to gain a buck or maybe $2. I think there's a good chance to gain $2. And like I said, if people start caving at 126, then shame on them, because that's a failure. But you look at the board as we come into Friday. Of course, there's going to be a lot of pressure, and there's going to be people that seen this before, and they're going to bet on this thing to go down and try to crash it. But if the board kind of holds halfway decent in the morning, I think there should be some trades start to surface. Where it'll be, nobody knows. But as guys start getting out of their hedges, that'll lend support to the board, and maybe it's time to hold out for $1.28 or better. Who knows? It'll be interesting to watch, and you guys probably have already seen what happened by the time you see this report. But that's what I'm thinking here late Thursday. Look at the board for Thursday. April live cattle down a quarter to end the day at 123.72. February spot live cattle up 17 cents at 125.77. And if we're usually dealing with about a $2 basis, why not get $1.28 for fats? March feeder cattle down $1.05 to end the day at 147.25. April down 70 at 148.65. Like I said, no fat cattle trade at all to speak of. We do not have an inkling of what it could be, although we know that steady's kind of been out there, so we should ought to get at least $1 and probably $2 or more. But box beef cutout values have changed very little from last week on the bulk of the trade, so it's just been up and down just a little bit, but just modest movement there. Your slaughter's been plenty good enough, 464,000 through Thursday. That's just 5,000 off of the good speed they had a week ago, and up 15,000 from the same week a year ago. Now, you guys think I'm hard on the packers all the time. I'm just, you know, you got to be rooting for one side or the other, and I'm a cowboy at heart. But you look at the packers there, and a guy shared this with me. The report here had Tyson Foods, the first fiscal quarter, had $100 million in bonuses is going to be given out because of the good quarter that they had. So this all goes back to Donald Trump and the tax cuts and everything. Tyson is going to come in there and give most all of their full-time employees a full $1,000 bonus, and $500 to a lot of the part-time guys, and that's great. I tell you what, those are working people, and they need to get all the help they can get. But first quarter net income was $1.63 billion, and I'm not just talking about the beef side, I'm talking about all of Tyson, but $1.63 billion first quarter net income. And their beef sales increased almost 5%. So we know we've been talking about beef is getting more back into favor, not just domestically, but also as a good export product. And we're starting to see a time where your dollar is a value. The dollar's down a little bit, so people are coming in and being able to buy beef products and all products, American products, at a discount to what they've been seeing. So that's great. And $300 million in tax savings from Trump's tax cuts are going to go in to fund innovation, training, and development, and that's all great. You know, we're rooting for our Packers, but you know, I'm usually talking about the struggle between the cattle feeder or the cattle producer and the Packers there, and I'm always going to be on the Cowboys side when it comes to that. But you look at your feeder markets, your real-time index on Beef Market Central late in the day on Thursday, exactly steady with the late on Wednesday, and that's unbelievable when you got all those sale barns pumping all those cattle. There's nearly 20,000 in the kitty there, and you look at that, and it's a moving average. It's just unbelievable. It could be straight up steady, but 147.40 is where it ended late on Wednesday. But you look at some sales. Pratt, Kansas had a good sale, 3,400 head on Thursday, mostly steady. Had spots of $3 higher on some lighter weight heifers, and that kind of goes to show you, because you remember we talked last week, the heifers were kind of softer around, so they've kind of come back. So that goes to figure. You look at Salina, Kansas, Farmers and Ranchers Livestock, the second big feeder sale they've had this week, 3,300 head there. Nothing out on market news, but if you look at the automated market report straight from the block on Cattle Market Central there, you look at the steers, and it appears on the lighter weight steers under 800 pounds, $2 to $5 higher, and we've been seeing that going that close up into the northern plains. And your bigger feeder steers weighing over 800 pounds, $2 to $3 cheaper just on the weighted average compared to the previous week. But you look here on Friday, we've got big special sales. Wahoo, Nebraska, which I love to say, has got a special feeder cattle auction there, having a good run for them there. Burwell, Nebraska is going to have a big special, and they're expecting a lot of those great sandhill cattle, and we'll see some crazy prices come out of there, I'm sure. But you can get on DV Auction and watch either one of those sales, view and bid right from your home or wherever you're at. But you look at the conditions out there. This wheat is played out, and you're starting to see some of those wheat cattle move in. You know, guys tried to leave them out there hoping maybe we'd get a little snow, which is really good for the wheat. That never happened. Hopefully maybe get a little rain. That never happened. Guys were feeding them out on the wheat, just trying to hold them out there as long as they can, and it looks like they're just out there on dirt. You can't see any hint of green or anything coming out there. Even some irrigated wheat. You know, talk to some guys that's got irrigated wheat. It's not doing them any good because the nights are still so cold down in the teens and the 20s in the southern plains at night. It doesn't do them any good to water that wheat because it still won't grow even when you put some wetness on it. But some of those cattle are starting to come into town. I talked to a guy that was at Pratt. He said those cattle are starting to come into town in Pratt. They're starting to show up in some other places, El Reno, Oklahoma, all through the southern plains. And it's amazing what kind of shape they're in. You could still call some of them fleshy. And that wheat is really sweet and does them a lot of good right up next to the ground. But I'll tell you what, it gives them the dirty noses. But you look at some individual quotes on Thursday. Bluegrass Stockyard South in Stanford, Kentucky. We're getting close enough now into the spring. These guys are coming back to those yearling backgrounded cattle in the Kentucky areas there. But you look at at 9:40 on Thursday morning. Stanford sold 62 head of steers, weighed 881 at 143.80. And guys, you'd be hard pressed to get that anywhere out in the West, weighing that close to 900 pounds. That is a great price. And then a straight up market price just after 1 o'clock on Thursday in Pratt, Kansas. 65 head of steers, weighed 827 pounds at 151 1/4. That's your feeder flash for Friday.